Hey guys, this is Charlie Will with Will Power Rowing, and today we're going to go over how to update the firmware using a USB key on a Concept2 PM5 monitor. Now, there's two ways to update the firmware. One is to use a cable like this. It's a USB A to B cable, so this is the USB A connector, one you're probably used to seeing, and USB B connector, which is what you normally see on a printer cable. So this is the official the official Concept2 cable that came with my Model C that had a PM3 monitor. I'm not going to use that today. We're going to update a PM5, and we're going to do it using a USB key. So a couple of things you need. Obviously, the USB drive itself. There are some limitations on what's supported to do this. The best rule of thumb is to use a smaller sized one. If you have one that's a gig, that one works well. A gig or less normally works well. Concept2 has a list that they have supported. They can support bigger than that, but I've had the best luck using a gig or smaller USB keys. The other thing you'll need is D-size batteries. During the firmware upgrade process, you want to make sure that the performance monitor has the power to do it. So if you don't have enough battery juice, it actually won't let you perform the firmware upgrade. And it's probably just a good time to change the batteries in your monitor is when you're upgrading the firmware. You'll also need the Concept2 utility, which I covered the download and installation of that in previous video that I'll link below, and that's what we need. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in how to set up the USB key first, and then actually go out to the ERG and do the firmware update. All right, so let's go prepare our USB key. Okay guys, we're on the Mac, and we have the Concept2 utility up here, so we're going to load that up. Once it comes up, we're going to go to the update firmware screen and actually just click once on it. Then PM5, click on that. It gives us two options here. One, we can connect the PM5 to our computer with a USB cable or insert a USB flash drive. So we're going to insert a USB flash drive. Putting that in there. Putting that in now. It's prompted me for a username. Now I can also use this USB key to store workouts, and it needs to associate those workouts with a username. So just put in something that you like. I'll put in CWill and create that as a username for the USB key. Did that. It's actually loading up the files, the firmware files up on the USB key. Takes just a moment here. And we're done. Gives us some instructions here on what we need to do. Pull the USB key, USB drive out of the Mac, pop it into the USB port on the back of the PM5. It'll prompt us with this screen, whether to update now or update later. If you want to get a workout in first, or if you wanted to use this on a ERG at your local gym and didn't want to update the firmware but wanted to record your workouts, you could do the update later option or choose update now. So what we're going to do is we're going to click OK, eject the USB key, and go out to the ERG and update the firmware. All right guys, now we're going portable here. We're coming up to the ERG, and we're going to go through the process of doing the firmware upgrade. So I've got the USB key here. So I'm going to go to the back. There's the USB slot right here. Make sure we put it in the right way. Get it in, plug it in. Then we'll come up to the front of the ERG here. Hopefully we can see the display all right. All right, you see that? It says low batteries. US logbook will not function, may affect backlight. All right, So with that case, we can't do the firmware upgrade until we actually replace the batteries. So that's why I said it's a good idea to have those batteries ready. So what I'm going to do is come to the back here, pull the USB key, set it down, unscrew the back, we'll pull out the existing batteries, and replace them with these new ones. Put the cover back on. Replace the screw. And we should be good to go. Come up here, yes, and we're good. We still have our date maintained. So come back here, replace the USB key. We come back to the front, and there we go. Now we actually see the screen here about updating the firmware. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit update now. Firmware will be installed now. Just a warning, don't pull the disk, the drive. So we'll go ahead, hit update now. And then this is what happens. Go ahead and get this in. I'll hold this here. What I'll probably do is I will speed through this during post-production. And there we go. We have the firmware updated. So we can tell we're on a new firmware. Oh, it actually resets the lifetime meters on here. Oh, that's for the logbook that I just did. So, so yeah, note the username up here is cwill. Let me go ahead and pull that USB key out. It should go back to the normal main menu. And we actually now, with the new version of the firmware, we get a little indicator of the battery strength. So it's always good to keep the firmware updated for the latest features and to have a stable platform. All right, thanks a lot, guys. So now we have that updated. The next one we'll cover is updating by way of the USB cable for the PM3. Okay, guys, kind of as an afterthought here, I wanted to just talk briefly about why we want to keep the firmware on our PM monitors up to date. So there's actually two primary reasons. One, we saw when we did the update, noticed that there was a little battery indicator on the display to let us know when the internal batteries are wearing low, and get us to replace them in a timely manner. So that's a handy feature. So if you want to stay up to date with features, keeping the firmware updated to the latest revision, is the best way to do that. Another reason is no company has ever put out on the first try a perfect bit of code. So there's constant updating. The user community is a good test bed. Problems are found and they're fixed. So usually the latest firmware is the most stable firmware that's available. So to get a nice stable environment with the most features. That's the reason why we want to keep our firmware up to date. So just wanted to put this in as a bit of an afterthought. So go out, update the firmware on your PM monitors, and let's get out and row.